Hello, friends. Welcome back to Hot Girls Can't Drive. I'm your host, Bree, and today we're going to be having a little chat about something kind of different from what you might be used to. I've been seeing a lot of TikToks and a lot of ads recently for the new Hunger Games prequel movie that's going to be coming out soon. And it really got me thinking and reflecting on the insane hype that was surrounding dystopian teen movies in the early to mid 2010s. Because this was a movement, especially for young teen girls like myself around that time. Though these teen dystopian movies had a chokehold on us. And I just kind of want to talk about it and put in my own 2 cents. As a Hunger Games fan myself, I'm extremely excited for this movie. And my hope is that maybe we'll get a resurrection. Maybe the era that was dystopian movies will come back from the dead because of this. I really doubt it, but a girl can dream. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But first off, let's just have a little chat about the week. So, the last episode I recorded was on Wednesday. So, it's been less than a week since we last had a little chat. And it's been interesting. I had a really uneventful Friday night this weekend. Okay, that's a lie. I somehow got really sick Friday night. And that was a little bit traumatic for me. And I might never, ever, ever leave my dorm room ever again after that. And if you saw me Friday night, we're just never going to talk about that again. Um, so I was supposed to have a 2-day swim meet this weekend, and it turned into one because I somehow could not swim Saturday. I was just so sick, and I don't know how. That's a lie, we all know how, but I don't know how. So I ended up sleeping all day Saturday. And then Sunday, I ended up dropping time in my 500 free. So it was kind of a sleigh. And now here we are on Monday. But yeah, guys, I don't know what happened Friday. I just got super sick. Anyways, that's embarrassing. If you saw me Friday night, we're just not going to talk about it. Uh, Moving on from that, I tried to kind of channel my inner Katniss today with this little braid, my side braid. I haven't worn a side braid since middle school when I was in my dystopian teen girl lover era, and I dressed up as Katniss Everdeen Mockingjay fit for Halloween in 7th grade, and I wore a little side braid. And so I figured I would bring it back today in memoriam because we're in mourning of this era because I loved the era that was teen dystopian drama romance movies, and I want it back. Let's start about what even is this? Because if you were living under a rock, which, Ms. Girl, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you were living under a rock. Where were you in the early to mid 2010s? Because you missed out. You need to go pause this podcast and go rewatch all of them. But basically, this dystopian era started with the first Hunger Games, right? And after the first Hunger Games was released, we saw a rise in books and movies that came out that were under the same idea of this teen post apocalyptic era, usually with a main character who was tasked with saving the world from usually a corrupt government or a higher power that was trying to kill off humanity in some way. And this was basically the main idea of all of these movies and books, but changed a little bit, right? Every single one was tweaked a little bit. And honestly, I think we saw the end of this era in around 2018. And I honestly think it ended because it was just the same idea every single movie, right? These teens, a lot of times they fall in love and they're trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world, right? Parents gone most of the time. Where the fuck are their parents? We have no fucking idea. Um, and they are like trying to save humanity as we know it. And it's the same idea for all of them, but I love them nonetheless. And some of them were really shitty, and I still fucking love them. And I kind of wanted to break that down today. So we're going to go over kind of all of the movies that encompassed this era. And then we're also going to talk about how well I think I would have survived in these post-apocalyptic worlds, because I think I would have slayed some of them. Like the outfits in some of them. Excuse me, Hunger Games catching fire like arena fits, I would have fucking slayed. Those things were given Skims bodysuits, right? Like Miss Girl Katniss Everdeen looks snatched in that catching fire arena fit. Like I would have slayed that. I seriously think I would. So we're gonna have a little chat about that. But let's go over the movies that encompassed this era. Now, before we start, I recognize that this era included both movies and books, but I'm not a reader. I'm too fucking busy. I got other important things. Sorry about it. Sorry about if you're a reader, but like Bree, I'm always fucking running around. I never had time to read books growing up, so I was a movie girly. 2 hours, boom, you're done. Books can take for fucking ever. So we're not really going to be talking about the books, and while I do recognize that some people listening to this or watching this if you're on YouTube might be really offended by that fact, and all I have to say is sorry about it. You're listening to my podcast. Hot girls can't drive. Hot girls also don't read. Sorry about it. I said it. Period. I said it. So let's talk about the big kahunas, the big three movies that encompassed this dystopian teen girl early 2010s era. And I categorize the big three monsters, giants of this time, as the Hunger Games franchise, the Divergent franchise, and the Maze Runner franchise. When you think about teen dystopian era movies, you think of those three franchises. And I rate them in those order. Not necessarily about how good they were made, but how much I loved them. Hunger Games will always be number one for me, right? I think that franchise, those movies are beautiful. The ending is beautiful. I did read the first Hunger Games book. That book was amazing, right? Suzanne Collins, amazing writer. I'm pretty sure she wrote those. Sorry if you didn't, girl. But if you did, amazing. And those are always going to be number one. Hence why they're getting a reboot now, right? Everyone always thinks of those movies as the peak teen dystopian girl era movies, because the Hunger Games was the one that started it all, in my opinion, right? But there's plenty of other standalone movies and quote unquote franchises that also encompass this era. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. So let's start with the big three, actually. Let's start with the big three. So Hunger Games, first one, right? Everybody loves those movies. I love those movies. It's just kind of your idea of, I mean, everybody's seen those movies, so I feel like I really don't need to break down the plot of that movie. But basically, Katniss and Peeta are the two main girl and boy characters, and this is a post, like, I guess it's not apocalyptic, but like post World War era, I guess you could say, where the capital and all the rich people make all the poor kids fight against each other once a year to like basically be fucking dumb. I don't care. I don't fucking know. To be like bitches, I guess, because they think it's fun to see teens kill each other. And that's like the big summary. Like basically it's this whole thing, like there's districts and two kids from each district have to go fight in this arena like once a year, and then whichever one is the winner, they have to like, they're like famous or whatever, and they get to like not be poor anymore, which I guess I don't know if that's really true because Haymitch was still poor. But like they get to move into like these fancy victors' houses in their districts, yada yada yada, right? So basically our main two girlies, Katniss and Peeta, are from the same district. They go to the Hunger Games together. They end up falling in love. It takes them a fucking while for it to happen, but it happens eventually. And don't hate Brie Fish for this, but I was a Gale girly, and I'm not even sorry about it. Because looking back, like as I'm older and I actually understand the fucking plot of those movies, like obviously Gale is fucking fucked up for the whole bombing thing with Prim. Like that was wrong. But as a 13-year-old girl who just cared about how attractive the men were, Liam Hemsworth is always going to be hotter than Josh Hutcherson. Hutcherson? I don't even fucking know. I'm sorry about it, but Liam Hemsworth has always got my heart, and I stand by the fact that I think that Gale was hotter than Peeta. Okay, he's taller. I like brunettes, right? I just think he was a pretty boy. So as a 13-year-old girly who wasn't really paying attention to the plot of the movies, I really was a Gale girly, and I never understood why she picked Peeta. I stood behind it, like Katniss was my girly, so I'm gonna support her decisions. But I would have picked Gale, Miss Girl. I would have picked Gale. And I'm not even sorry about that. You can hate, you can have your own opinions. I recognize now that Gale was a bad person, but at the time I was like, "Oh yeah, like he got her family out of the bombings. He supported her family, right? He got food for her family like when she was gone. Like, okay, provider." Like I thought Gale was so fucking hot. And I'm not even sorry about that. I still stand behind that. I still think he was more attractive. Katniss might have to rethink your decision, Miss Girl. I feel like my summary of the Hunger Games was really bad, but like I just feel like you had to have you've watched them. You know. So that's number one. That's always gonna be number one in my heart. I think in all the teen girlies' hearts that were around during this time, we're always gonna stand by that. Okay, so number two franchise, in my opinion, was the Divergent franchise. And let me tell you, we were robbed of the fourth movie. Was the third movie, Allegiant, awful of this franchise? Yes, it was. Do I still think we deserve the fourth movie? Yes, I do. They filmed it. They should have released it at least somewhere. I get that they didn't release it to like theaters, but they could have like dropped it on like Amazon Prime. Like, I still think and I still believe that one day we will see the fourth movie out of the Divergent franchise. I still stand by it. One day they're just somebody's gonna hack into like some computer system somewhere and somebody's gonna release it. We have to. Like, I have to see it. But let's start from number one. The first Divergent movie was amazing, right? I loved it. It's your classic dystopian movie era girly pop movie, right? Four is so fucking hot. I love him, right? Um, that movie was amazing. Insurgent number two, still pretty good, right? Trish chopped her hair off. I wasn't really feeling the pixie cut. Sorry about it. But four's still hot, so we're standing by it. Third movie gets really weird. The coloring of that movie, I hated that. Like all the red was really weird. I did not like that movie. I don't know. I didn't like the beyond the wall thing. I wasn't feeling that. Their movie was bad in my opinion. I get why they didn't release the fourth movie, but I still think they should have. And I think that that is one of the greatest failures of the 2010s was not releasing that movie. And I still hold out hope. But let's talk about the first movie, right? Divergent is about this girl named Triss. And basically in this post-apocalyptic era, there's one city left full of humans, and it's supposed to be Chicago, I think. And there's a huge wall around the city. And each city and the city has four factions. Let me see if I remember them. Amnesty, Erudite. Fuck, what's the other two? Amnesty, Erudite. Fuck, what's the one that she's in? Oh god, guys. Okay, it's been a while. Amnesty, Erudite. Oh my god, guys, you're gonna hate me. Okay, I got two of them. It's been years, guys, okay? It's been years. Okay, so we have Dauntless, which is the which is where all the brave people go. Think of this like sorting hat. So you've got Dauntless, which are all the brave people. Amity, which are all the kind people. Amity. Erudite, which are all the smart people. And abnegation, oh, there's multiple. Abnegation, which is the selfless, and candor is the honest. Wait, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's 5. So dauntless, amity, erudite, abnegation, and candor. Okay, we've got that. Okay, I had to work that out. I had to think about it in my brain hole, but we got there. Okay, so basically, when you turn a certain age, you're sorted into one of these factions, which is where you then live and work, and oftentimes it's different from where you grew up. Or not oftentimes, but sometimes it can be. And very rare people, when they take like the personality test when they reach a certain age, very rare teens will be cast as divergent, which means they don't fit into like one specific faction because they have the personality of all of the different factions. And those people are viewed as bad because this government during this like post-apocalyptic era wants to have control and like on everyone, I guess. So like if you have multiple of all of the personalities, like if you're fucking like if you have a good personality, the government's like, "Oh, bye bitch." They like kill you off or some shit. So divergence bad. obviously, like, we all know Divergent's good. Like, you wanna have a good personality, right? You don't want to be like fucking lame. But the government's like, no, lame, the dumber the better, right? The more ignorant the better. So our main character, Tris, when she gets to a certain age, she has to take the personality test, and obviously, you can guess, she was cast as Divergent. And so she has to lie when, like, she tells people what, like, faction she was sort of in, and she says, which one? She says that she's Dauntless, which is the brave one. They're kind of like the soldiers, right? It's giving military. It's giving their military. So she picks that one where she meets Four, which is her lover boy, right? He's so hot. He's so hot. And basically she like really fucking sucks at working out at first because Miss Girl came from like, which one does she come from? Was it Amity? She came from, oh no, she came from Abnegation. So she wasn't used to like all that working out shit and like jump. They fucking love to jump off trains in this franchise. I don't know what it's about, but they love to jump off trains. They love to risk their lives. And so basically the whole like first half of the movie is like this conflict because if she doesn't like pass all of the fitness tests and she's like rated at the bottom of her class, she'll be kicked out of Dauntless and then she'll become factionless, which is basically like homeless. So that's like the whole conflict of the first half of the movie. Second half, the government decides to employ all of the Dauntless people and like shoot them with like some fucking tracker thing that controls their brain to go take over Abnegation, I'm pretty sure. I don't even remember why, to be honest. That's so bad, but I was so focused on Four because he was so hot. Anyways, there's an uprising. Um, Tris is Divergent, so she isn't like, her brain isn't controlled by the government. So she goes and she like, her family dies. It's really sad. Her mom dies, and she's like, "Oh no, my mom died." But her and Four fall in love. Right? Four admits his feelings for her. Four knows that she's Divergent, and he's still a lover. So, yeah. And then the movie ends, but like with them like breaking down the wall or something, or is that Insurgent? I don't even remember. These movies all get mumbled up in my brain. But basically, Divergent was a slay movie, right? Because you get the conflict of it, you get the lover boy, you get sort of a resolution at the end, and boom. Should have been a standalone movie? Yes. Do I still appreciate Insurgent for the sequel that it was? Yes. Do I think Allegiant destroyed the franchise? Also, yes. I think the absolute disaster that was Allegiant really put a damper on that franchise, and I think people look back at it now thinking that it was like a disappointment when the first two movies were a slay. Miss Girl Shailene, she slayed those movies. She slayed those movies as Triss. And I stand behind that. Allegiant was just bad writing, and I think that their budget was cut, and it wasn't a good movie just like in general. Still think we should have gotten the fourth one though. I feel like the fourth one would have given after vibes. Like, we all fucking hate those movies, but we still watch them like it's our guilty pleasure. And I really think that the fourth Divergent movie would have given that vibe had they released it. I still believe they should release it. I stand by that. I stand by that. But I love the first Divergent movie. My mom loves that movie. I read like half of that book. I don't know why I never finished it. But Divergent, for me, is above Maze Runner in the big kahuna because there's romance, which, like I said, I was a 13-year-old girl, okay? I loved romance movies, right? We're not going to even pretend like you weren't a 13-year-old girl loving romance movies. Like, we were all a sucker for them. And so I liked Four. He was really hot. And I liked that movie. Maze Runner, I appreciated because Thomas, Dylan O'Brien, was very attractive, but you didn't really get lover girl vibes because him and Teresa kind of had a thing, but it wasn't like they literally didn't kiss until like the last 20 minutes of the last movie of the series. Like, we didn't really get any romance. So as a 13-year-old girlie in her lover girl era, right? I really feel like that they missed out. But Maze Runner is basically about these group of boys that are living in this like little foresty area that has a huge wall around it, and it's just boys, and there's a maze like but beyond the wall, And every day they send two boys to go run out in the maze to see if they can find a way to escape because they're all trapped in this like little foresty area and none of them can remember anything about their past lives except for their name. So Thomas pulls up and he's like, fuck this shit. Thomas is the main character, Dylan O'Brien. So he decides that he's just gonna like fucking ruin all of their like rules and everything they've been living by. So he ends up running into the maze when he's not supposed to, yada yada yada. He finds a way out and then they escape the maze and they realize that they were put in the maze by a the corrupt government called Wicked, but they don't really know it's corrupt at this time. And basically, Wicked, WCKD, that's obviously, that's, by the way, that's so obvious that they were evil. The fact that they called themselves Wicked, like, who does, like, what, the author made that so obvious. Like, did not try to hide the fact at all that Wicked was bad. Literally, the catchphrase for Wicked is good. Like, bye, Miss Girl is so fucking dumb. The author was not very creative when she came out with that name for the government. But anyways, basically, when they escape the maze at the end of the movie, they find out that there was a virus that, like, was given COVID that spread around the entire world and killed off hella people. But they have a theory that a specific group of people were immune to the virus. So something about they're putting them through all of these tests and trials to figure out who is like the best fit, who like okay natural selection. It's giving natural selection, aka evolution. So they put these teens through all these trials to figure out who's the best fit to figure out how to get a cure. So we find out at the end of the movie that the maze was just the first trial, right? Then there's the scorch trial, which is the next trial, which is the next movie. Basically, backing up, before they even escape the maze, Teresa pulls up. She's the last girl, she's the only girl that's ever been in the maze. She pulls up, and then pretty much like 2 days later, they split. They leave the maze. And literally the entire movie is them just running, like fucking running the entire time. And that's about it. That's literally the entire Maze Runner. It's literally giving running. They run the entire time. The first movie, they're running in a maze. The second movie, they're running in a desert. The third movie, they're running around a city. Like, that's just all it is. It's just running. And them being all mad because, like, the boys that were living in they call it the Glade, the foresty area, they're all like, there's no fucking cure. Like, this is so dumb. Like, you sacrificed us and, like, you're putting us through all this shit and all this torture to find a cure that doesn't exist. I think eventually in, like, the second movie, like, the beginning of the second movie, they find out that Wicked was evil. Obviously, girl, bye, I could have told you that. And they were, like, kidnapping all of these kids from their families and to put them through all these tests. And we find out that Thomas used to work for Wicked, but then he like decided it was wrong, so he went against Wicked, which is why they put him in the trials in the first place. And then of course we find out that Thomas is the cure because like his blood is the cure. Teresa turns on them at some point and like goes back and works for Wicked. But then on the third movie, they end up getting her back, and then she ends up kissing Thomas as the world around them is burning for some reason, and then she dies. Miss Girl dies. And then basically at the end, they're taken to this like better place, I guess, where the virus doesn't exist. Yada yada yada. There's a lot of zombies in there, which are called the cranks. It's giving Walking Dead when you're like scratched or bit by the zombie, you get taken over and then you become a crank, a zombie. That's it. That's the Maze Runner in a nutshell for you. And I think that's why that movie is rated last for me, because it was just like, okay, running, okay, more running, okay, a bunch of boys, and only like two of them are attractive. Like, it wasn't giving anything to me, right? There wasn't really any romance, so I don't really watch those movies. However, and I will say, I read a lot of Thomas and or Newt Tumblr fanfic in that era, and I'm not even gonna hide it. I used to be ashamed of it. Whatever, that was my past. Some y'all girlies were Wattpad girlies, right? You like to read Wattpad fanfic. Don't even lie to me. Don't even lie to me. I know you used to read it. I was a Tumblr girly, right? I love the Tumblr fanfics. To each their own. I was a Tumblr girly. Now you know. I loved, that was my favorite like fanfic to read, right? Even though they weren't my favorite movies, fanfic of Thomas from the Maze Runner was my favorite fanfic to read because I was bored and I didn't have anything else to do. You didn't catch me reading the actual book, but boy did I read a lot of fanfic, which is so funny. But that is a synopsis of basically the first three big movies. And yes, it's taken me 26 minutes to get this far. And I'm not sorry about it. Let's go over some of the other movies that encompass this category that maybe were not as big as the first three. Let's look it up. Okay, so the first one when I Googled teen dystopian movies was The Giver. I saw that movie. We had to read the book, maybe like seventh grade. Um, okay. Yeah, we saw it. It happened. Whatever. The Thinning, that was a YouTube Red movie with Logan Paul and Peyton List. I would put that above The Giver, but still behind The Maze Runner. I like The Thinning. Sorry about it. I liked it. I'm not even ashamed of that. Um, let's see. Next we had The Host. I loved the standalone movie. The book The Host was written by the same author as the Twilight Saga, which also could be characterized as a teen dystopian movie, maybe. I feel like people group Twilight Saga within this, which I don't really know if it counts. But, we'll put Twilight in there. And then if you haven't seen The Host, Miss Girl, you better go watch it. I would explain it to you, but it's so confusing because basically it's a love triangle. Because this alien takes over this girl's body, but the girl's conscious still lives in the body. So the girl's conscious in love with this one guy, and then the alien's in love with this other guy, but it's in the same body. Okay? But the men are hot in that movie, and you get a love triangle, and you get a dystopian. And I feel like nobody talks about this movie. Like, I feel like The Host is like a lost movie. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Host, but it's a slay movie. And if you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it right now because it was a 2013 movie, so a little bit earlier on the teen dystopian era that we're talking about, and it was a good movie. The ending credit song I'll always remember is Radioactive. Remember that song? I'm waking up, I feel it in my... And that's a Slay song, which was a perfect ending for the Slay movie, and I will forever want a sequel for this movie, and I'll never get it, but I'll forever want it, because if I could pick any of the men, and we'll talk about this later, but if I could pick any of the men, Jared from The Host is up there, okay? You ask my type, I say Jared from The Host, okay? Because he was my favorite. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Miss Girl, you better go watch that movie. You better go watch it. All right, let's move on. I Am Number 4. I saw this movie. I really felt like I was watching a sequel to another movie. I was just kind of like, what's going on in this plot? The characters, I didn't really get them. I feel like they weren't really like established. I didn't really like that movie, but I watched it like 2 or 3 times because obviously. Let's see. Anything else? Okay, those are the big ones. The Fifth Wave, I don't remember seeing that movie. So I guess it wasn't that good because I always watch all the good ones. But those are the big ones, right? When my of dystopian movies, that's what I think of, right? And I guess you could put the Twilight in there. Some people like to put Harry Potter in there. I don't really consider the movies at that point. I'm pretty sure were already out. I don't really place Harry Potter into that category. You can if you want. I don't, right? So now let's talk about the men, right? How would I rate the men in these movies? Okay, so my Bree Fish's official male main character of the teen dystopian movie era, that was early to mid 2010s, which is such a long title, I would probably put, this is a hard one, this was a hard one, I would probably go Finnick. Finnick should have never fucking died. I'll forever cry for Finnick. Finnick from the Hunger Games, I'm so sorry what happened to you. That actually breaks my heart every single time. If I had one wish for any of the Hunger Games movies, it would be that Finnick didn't die. Finnick is first forever in my heart. R.I.P. He should have never died. I hate the author for that, Suzanne Collins. I think that's your name. I'm coming for you. Finnick first. 4 from Divergent. Sorry about it. Sorry about it. Gale from Hunger Games. Again, we got another Hunger Games. Jared from The Host. Thomas from The Maze Runner. Then PETA from Hunger Games. He's low, guys. He's short. Okay, I'm tall. He's short and he's boring. I'm sorry. He's a boring character. I'm sorry. I think he's boring in the movies. The books, I feel like he has a lot more character. In movies, I think they did PETA wrong. PETA's down there for me. Am I missing anyone? I guess the guy from Giver, he can be last. He wasn't that hot. Oh, and the other guy from Host, Ian, put him after Jared before PETA. Okay, that's my official ranking. Did I miss any men? So I got Thomas in there, right? Gally from The Maze Runner was pretty cute too. he wasn't really counting because I don't think he was really like the guy that was involved in the romance specifically, but he's there, right? Like if Gally popped up right now and be like, "Hey, do you want to go out?" I'd be like, of course, King, I'd go out." So he can be placed to the side. That's my official ranking. Now, let's talk about how likely I am to survive these dystopian movies, starting with The Hunger Games. I actually feel pretty confident in my ability to survive the Hunger Games. When I was in middle school, my friend group at the time told me that I was the most likely to survive the Hunger Games out of all of them. And that was the biggest compliment ever because I felt like such a badass bitch that they said that. And I stand behind that. I was in Girl Scouts, which basically means that I have the most amazing survival skills ever. So my strat for the Hunger Games would basically be as soon as the horn went off, I would sprint the other way and I would just go hide in the woods till everyone killed each other off. And then I would just pull up at the end when there's one last person and I would just kill him when he's not looking, right? Distraction. And then I would win because I'm convinced I could just hide until literally everyone else just died. Like I would definitely be playing defense in this game, not offense, defense. And that's how I'd win the Hunger Games. I feel my toxic trait is that I'm convinced if you put me on a deserted island, I would be able to survive. I feel like I have a lot of survivalist skills because I had to live in the woods for like a couple weeks this summer and I did Girl Scouts and I watched Survivor, and so basically, all three of that means that I could survive on my own. That's my conclusion. So I feel like if I just ran into the woods as soon as the timer went off, I'd be fine, right? I think I'd be fine. So I'm pretty convinced I would win the Hunger Games, if not come at least second. At least second. Divergent, I think I would have fucking fallen off that train. Because literally the first like scene after Triss picks Dauntless is she has to jump on a train. And bitch, I would have died right fucking there. Cause ain't no way I can't even like my box jump. I cannot box jump that high. Okay, like I've got the height. I've got 5'8", but I just know I'd fall flat on my fucking face if I try to jump on that train. So I don't think I would survive. I don't think I would survive that far. And knowing me, my dumbass would have also picked Dauntless. Like it's basically the same as Army ROTC, so it's the same thing. And I don't even need to even discuss the Maze Runner because it's literally in the name. And if you have listened to any of the Hot Girl Can't Drive podcasts before this, any of the episodes before this, you know Bree cannot run, cannot run. So for a franchise that is literally made up of the main characters running the entire fucking time, I would have never made it past the first movie. Knowing me, when Thomas comes to all the boys and he's like, guys, we gotta leave now. Like, I found an exit to the maze. And Gally's like, oh no, we need to stay here. We don't know what else is out there. I would have fucking stayed with Gally, right? Like, I'm not going into that maze. Fuck that. And even if I had, I would have never fucking survived those like sharp blade things when Thomas has to run through those. Like, I would have been crushed because I can't run. And when they got to the Scorch Trials, by Miss Girl, I couldn't run in the desert like that. Like, I would have never made it. I would have never made it past the first movie, right? Not even the second. Hunger Games, I'm pretty confident I would have made it the entire way. Because first movie, if I'd won it, then I would have gone into what Katniss did the second movie. I think I could have won. That's actually a good question. Would I have won Catching Fire because everyone would have known my strategy at that point? I think that would all just depend on who I was in the arena with, and maybe they could just go kill everybody for me while I sat in a tree. So that's my strat for Catching Fire. I would have just sat in a tree the whole time. Okay. Um, but I probably wouldn't have been able to run away from the fog though because I can't run. Maze Runner, we all know I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have survived. And those are like the big three. So Hunger Games would have made it past the first movie. Divergent would have made it halfway through the first movie. Maze Runner would have made it 30 minutes through the first movie. And I think the learning lesson of this self-evaluation within myself is that I need to get better at running, which we already knew, but I feel like if I was better at running, then I could be prepared in case the teen dystopian era that was the early 2010s to mid 2010s, if that ever comes to life, I gotta be prepared. Because we all know that I'm the main character, right? Because I feel like I give Katniss energy, especially with my braid. Like, I give Katniss energy, right? Right? So, I gotta be prepared in case this ever comes, in case this ever becomes a thing. So I better start running. And also, where the fuck is my Finnick? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Right? Like, I would be excited if I was in a post-apocalyptic world solely for the fact that all of the main characters get a man's, and I want one. I want one. I want a hot post-apocalyptic man to run around with me. So that's honestly when I run from now on, that's what's gonna keep me going. This and I'm sorry if this was really cringy for you, if you really had to like channel your 13-year-old self to really reflect with me on this. But I'm also not sorry because I think the biggest takeaways from this are I am so excited for the new Hunger Games movie coming out. We all deserve the fourth Divergent movie, right? And there should have been more scenes with Thomas and Teresa. And Gale was a bad guy, but he was still hot, and they did PETA dirty. Those are the four takeaways from this. And also, if you have not watched the movie Host, you need to go fucking watch that right now, Miss Girl. And you need to report back and tell me what you think. Because I feel like that is such a lost movie in time. And I feel like whenever I talk about the movie to people, people have no idea what I'm talking about. And I love that movie so much, so please go watch it so we can talk about it. And that's all. That is the end of this discussion. Please let me know what you think. You can, if you're on Spotify, you can scroll up. You can give me your opinions and also let me know what you want me to talk about in the next episode. And I can't wait to recap when I go watch the new Hunger Games movie in theaters. I will let you know how it goes. And also, let's bring back the side braid. Okay, queens? Let's bring it back. And I hope you have a great week. All right, bye.